All right, new YouTube video. In this one, I did not prepare anything. I was literally just in the middle of programming and I was like, you know what, this is going to be a really good topic to cover on YouTube video. And the topic is basically like what are some simple buttons we can push in order to get someone to progress? How can we dose a little bit more in someone's program when we already have a system that's working, but they need a little bit of a bump somewhere. We need to start to actively, progressively overload somewhere. We need to work a little harder to move the needle forward. However you want to phrase it, it is inevitable for us to need to do more over time and for us to open up the capacity to tolerate that more, whatever that more might look like for the athlete. And yeah, this video is basically going to be some really, really low hanging fruits and some really simple ways to do more in a program. Um, so yeah, to start out, I really want to preface by saying two things. One, this video is assuming you have the layout and the general like trends for a lifter figured out in their programming. Or if you're a lifter watching this video is assuming that you've got your training figured out for the most part. You have some momentum. You've got a consistent layout that you can repeat. That is, you can train and manage that within your life schedule. You're making some kind of progress and you have some kind of idea in terms of what works and doesn't work for you. Second thing is this video is actually pretty similar slash inspired by an old Instagram post I made where I put a hierarchical pyramid, like a hierarchy pyramid, basically with what is the high priority stuff to change when we need to do more? What is the low priority stuff, like the kind of last resort stuff that we need to change in order to do more? And in this video, I'm going to talk about those really low hanging fruits at the top of the hierarchy. Like, what should we be looking at first? What are the small things to dose first before we jump ship or change something more significant, basically. So, with all of that being said, the three things I'm going to talk about here are back offset average intensity, set count and rep count, and accessory workload slash intensity, and how we are going to intentionally progressively overload a certain compound accessory throughout a block. Those are the three things. So yeah, let's get right into how I recommend you as a lifter or you as a coach go about actively progressing those things and how to push those buttons. So the first, and I'm gonna go, this entire video is basically gonna be me using this example session from my client Maxine. So the reason is this session, we actually touched all three of these buttons very slightly. So it makes sense because this is just fresh in my mind. So the first one with back offset average intensity. This is a really, really simple way to put more on the bar over time, keep the general like loading goal similar throughout each block, but slowly do more, right? So think of like adding 2.5 kilos, but keeping the same rep scheme. Starting the block at a slightly higher baseline on weeks 1 and 2, but still having the same ending point, right? Basically slowly doing more over time and controlling the load on the bar. So a simple way I like to do this, and an example within Maxine, is if you look at, this was her old secondary day layout on squat. She would do a top paused triple with a top set of 6, and then she would drop off 2 different times for a 3x6. So it'd be an RPE base set of 6. In this example, she would take 92.5 kilos, drop to 85 for 6, and then drop to 80 for a 2x6. So we wanted to give things a little bit more of a nudge, right? So a simple way that we did that is basically only dropping off once instead of 2 times for the back off sets. So she still has the paused top triple that we know works. We know this specific set dosed in the way that it has been yields a good outcome on the primary session. But instead of going 1x6, 1x6, 2x6, now we're going 2x6, 2x6. So she's basically taking the old top set of 6 twice, and then doing a 2x6 after that. So really simple way to just bump up average intensity. And this is just one example of how to do so within the layout that we had for her. So she would typically work up to that old 1x6 at an RPE to around like the 97 to 100 kilo mark. But now she's going to be doing that for 2 sets, and then doing a 2x6 at the average of what was there before. There are plenty of ways to increase average intensity on back off sets. A lot of the times I will just have a top set ranged out, just like I had with Maxine before that I just showed. Simple way to bump that up over time is to increase the range or increase the RPE. And like I mentioned earlier, increase the baseline for the first couple of weeks of the block and then get things moving from there. This is just one example, but it can be really that simple. So you can see like it is such a slight difference in programming. 1, 1, 2, right? 1x6, 1x6, 2x6, and now it's just a 2x6, 2x6. But there is a difference. There is going to be more being done on this day. So that's the first thing I wanted to go over. Super easy and quick. Really not a whole lot of thought behind it. Just doing a little bit more on back offsets on the areas that you feel like are necessary. So another way I like to slowly do more within a lifter's programming in order to yield more progress over time is with back offset set and rep count. So this didn't really pertain to Maxine's situation too much, but the change I'm about to mention that we did block to block for her does fit in this category. The reason, so if you look at her old session here, she was doing 5s, and basically we bumped these to 6s. The reason for that is because we're starting to see this trend from over time that she does really well with this just like really low intensity, high rep stuff. So we're just kind of buying more into that theme for her on this day. However, this is just a really simple way to get someone to do more. So in this example, she was doing 4 sets of 5 on this day, right? She had a single sprinkled in between them, but it was in total 4 sets of 5. A really good way to just do more is give someone another rep on the back offsets. It sounds like kind of silly to say out loud because it's so simple, but this is very effective and really requires almost no thought to things. And it will have almost no impact on if a session remains effective or not. Like sometimes someone genuinely is going to be that sensitive to 5s versus 6s, but for the most part, they're not. So yeah, just a really simple way to do that is by adding a rep. Another simple way is if you were to, for example, if I wanted to progress this session for her, what we could do is we could do a top set of 8 and try to push that to the same load as the set of 6 before. And then I would probably drop the back off sets here to 2 sets of 8. Once those are progressed over time and over time more, we still have the road to, we can do something like this, where she drops off once and then does 2 more sets. And then over time from that, we can just do 3 straight sets after that. So you get the point. It's really just taking plus 1 set, plus 1 rep, and then kind of combining the 2, dropping off an additional time, then combining those. So just really simple ways to manipulate. It's almost a similar category to what I mentioned before with the average intensity on backoffs, right? Because that's essentially what we're doing here. We're trying harder on backoffs. Yes, we are changing the amount of volume. That's why I think it can be important in this case, if we bring these to 8s, to take away a set, because you're kind of evening out the total amount of reps being done on the session. But super easy way to do that. There are other instances, like something I personally love to do throughout blocks is intentionally periodize back off sets, or have a top rep set for someone, say on the bench press in this example, that gets chipped down over time and gets progressed over time. So if we go take Maxine's secondary session here, this is a pretty common primary bench layout that I have for people. Something I'll do for people a lot of the time is I'll just start them at like a bunch of 4s or 5s, like 4s or 5s for primary bench back off sets. I'll eventually progress those to 3s and 5s, and then 2s and 5s, and then 2s and 4s, and maybe adding a third set of 4. So it's really simple stuff. You're going to be manipulating the total amount of work done over time, the total amount of volume done over time. And yes, there's changes to the system that happen there, but in order to get someone to continue to progress and open up the capacity to do more, that's a really, really simple way to do so. A third and final way to do more over time in a powerlifter's program is through compound accessory work. Oftentimes I like to view compound accessory work as almost like workload to squat bench deadlift in a lot of cases. So we've seen times where it can be a good idea to do a third squat day for someone, but have it be leg press or belt squat or hack squat. An additional fourth or fifth bench day, whatever the number may be for someone, doing a chest press, a lying chest press machine or dumbbell press or something. So oftentimes people can be pretty sensitive to progressing compound accessories. So the two big areas I personally see are pressing accessories and compound leg accessories like the ones I just mentioned. Leg press, hack squat, pendulum squat, belt squat, whatever it may be. So in Maxine's case, what we were doing before for her was just one set of a weighted dip and two quick rests. So you can see before what I wrote was with 60-second rest. That's basically me telling her to rest pretty quickly. And that would sets of pause flat dumbbell press. So those would be the accessories for her on this day. We've seen time after time only one set of weighted dips is necessary for Maxine, and it's for the most part all she can tolerate without there being like a shoulder issue or just bleed over into her other accessories in her following bench day. So what we're doing with this in order to dose a little bit more here is really simple. We're doing a little bit more on the weighted dip. So for this one set for her, throughout a 3 to 4 block macro cycle, we can probably expect this set of 10 to 12 to go to a set of 8 to 10, and then a set of 7 to 8 or 6 to 8, and then a set of 5 to 7, 4 to 6, right? So chipping away on these reps is a really simple way to get them to progress, especially when we are doing so intentionally so the lifter knows that it is meant to be progressed throughout a block and throughout a macro cycle. Another thing we did here is we took the 2 by 12 to 15 on the pause flat dumbbell press we were doing before, got rid of the quick rest, so there would be a bit more like capacity to handle heavier dumbbells here and have a higher quality set. But we added a bit of a top set and then higher rep set approach. So instead of just a 2 by 12, 15, we're doing a bit of a heavier set here of 7 to 8 reps. So more opportunity to push the dumbbell press, more opportunity to touch heavier dumbbells, etc. So again, really simple ways to progress accessories. Something I like to do here is you can add a set as well. So on something like a belt squat or a leg press, for the most part, like just a random example, what I'll like to do is at the end, throw in a drop set with 30-second rest. So if someone's doing 2 sets of a leg press, both of them are pushed to 8 RPE. If I want someone to do a little bit more like accessory work, or we need to dose something a little bit more and I choose to go the accessory route, I'll just add a drop set after those 2 sets. So it doesn't really feel like there's another set being added. It doesn't really increase the length of the session. But yeah, really just simple ways here. So the point of me making this video is to just show how simple it can be to keep the ball rolling for people and keep the train the train going, right? Keep momentum, have just high quality blocks, block after block. And there really oftentimes does not need to be a lot of thought that goes into it. If someone is stalling out, oftentimes you don't need the additional day of frequency. Oftentimes you don't need to push harder or earlier onto the block by a large degree. You don't need to change technique. You don't really need to look for a solution. It's more so just understanding like, hey, where is progress at right now? How have things been going within the past X amount of time? What are some of these really small, low interference, low impact buttons that we can push to continue to make progress and continue to let momentum kind of do its thing? Those are 3 things I really like to do. And again, like the emphasis on thoughtlessness here, like there doesn't really need to be a lot of overthinking behind this kind of stuff. You can just do it and commit to it, and the impact is going to be minimal. So if it doesn't go your way and you end up going the wrong direction or pressing the wrong button, however you want to phrase it, you can just go back to what you're doing before and there's going to be little to no impact on the system. So it's almost like you're kind of viewing it as a win-win, because it either goes better and that person is responding well to a little bit of more, or it doesn't really do the trick. Maybe it goes a little bit worse and you just go back to what was working. You know what I mean? So again, increased back offset, average intensity. There are multiple ways to do that. I ran through a couple here. Pushing accessories, so plus 1 set, doing, progressing reps throughout a block and a macro cycle, controlling the rest times, doing drop sets, things of that nature. and playing around with back off, rep and set count. So hopefully somebody out there found this helpful. But again, I'm really trying to emphasize how simple this stuff can be. But yeah, if you have any questions or comments, let me know down in the comment section here, and I will see you guys for the next YouTube video.